Hi, I'm Ralph Amicis. I'm the astrologer, one of the two astrologers, along with Lonnie Amicis for the Planetary calendar. And this is your forecast for May of 2017. Now, in doing this forecast, I'm working from the calendar. Let's take a quick picture of that for you. May. Okay. And I'm also working from the forecast that we wrote, and I'm working from the charts. And as you go through the calendar, you will see certain spots where letters appear in the box. This one, for instance, is on the 3rd. There's a A. What is that? When you're going through the forecast, it will show up in the forecast as well. And so when you're going day through day and you see an A there, it means go up and read that line in the forecast. You should read the whole forecast, but read that line specifically because something is happening. So, for instance, normally by the 25th, there's an E there. Normally by the 25th, you read the forecast, you forgot all about it. But now you get there and you say, oh, I better read that line, what was happening on the 25th, because it's pertinent. And I've done this myself. We write the forecast, but I'll read it at the beginning of the month, and then I forget all about it. And as the month goes by, something weird happens. I'll go up and say, what's going on? And I'll read up in the forecast and say, oh, geez. So we built this in there to make it more interactive and more helpful. Now also, while you're going through it, if we're talking about a trine or a conjunction or something, and you don't see it on that day, you don't see that sun trine moon on that day, doesn't mean the aspect isn't going on. We only note it where it's exact, to the degree, to the minute, and to the second. But many of these aspects go on for weeks, sometimes months. It's not uncommon. Some are very quick. If it's a Mercury or moon aspect, it's very, very quick. But other ones go on for a long time. So when we're looking at the forecast and we're looking at lunations, because remember we're working with the new moon and the full moon as well, we're looking at that. So with all that said, let's get started. May. Yes, Mayo. Always a nice month, don't you think? May's such a nice month. Flowers. I always think of May as flowers. And after April this year, April was just tumultuous. Oh my gosh, there were so many planets changing sign and changing direction. It just was very unsteady. But when you have that kind of thing happen where it's all concentrated, the next month is, as we say here, welcome to a thankfully smooth and very interesting May, a time for creativity and brilliance. Nice. On the 3rd, Mercury turns direct in Aries. So Mercury's been running retrograde all this time. Finally turns direct in Aries, providing an igniting spark as we move towards the full moon on the 10th, when there's a creative quintile between Jupiter and Saturn and a prosperous trine between Jupiter and Mars, promoting an inventive streak. A lot of astrologies, but what does it actually mean? A quintile is a degree of 72. Okay? It's 72 degrees. It's the degree of the goddess. If you make a 5-pointed star, the main degree is 72. Okay? It's very creative when you get a quintile between two planets. If you look in a person's chart and you see a quintile between the sun and the moon, they tend to be a very creative person, or between major planets. It will show the area where it's creative too. If it's between Mercury and Jupiter, for instance, they may be very creative in terms of how they earn money. So on this full moon, there's a quintile going on between Jupiter and Saturn. And these are the two big money players. Remember, we've had a challenge, if you've watched the forecast, where as they've gone out of aspect and they're both retrograde, the economy has probably suffered at this point. But this quintile, with them retrograde, what it means is that people are coming up with alternate ways. They're saying, geez, we're seeing the economy change so much. What are some ways in which we can take advantage of this? What are ways in which we can find solutions that will move us forward anyway? So it's really, when sometimes you put people in adverse conditions, they come up with ingenious solutions, and that's what we're looking at here. Also, there's a very prosperous trine going on between Jupiter and Mars. What does that mean? When Jupiter and Mars are trine to each other, Jupiter has the ability to expand things and have a future vision about something. Mars has the ability to act on it. So when you get a trine between these two, These are people who kind of see the opportunity and they don't think about sitting around and waiting and considering it. They act. You know, it's that concept in business that you know, those that react to change first win. That's Mars and Jupiter trine. Now Mars sextile Jupiter will do the same thing, just not to quite the same dimension, you might say, not to make a pun out of it. Okay, and that's on the 10th, on that full moon. Okay, now on that full moon, let me take a look at the chart since we're right here. We got it right there. I wrote the word brilliance, entrepreneurs, invention. I also wrote the words partnership are very significant as well. And what's interesting is that this quintile that's going on is with Saturn. Saturn is at the Galactic Center, 26 degrees Sagittarius, a very powerful esoteric place. And the trine that's going on here, okay, the trine that's going on here is between Saturn and Mercury. Mercury is one of the money planets. It's about brilliance and such, and it's a partile trine, 26 degrees to 26 degrees. And Uranus is at 25 degrees Aries conjunct. So this is one to really consider. You know, don't, like I said, don't sit around your hands. Don't spend the whole day, you know, so tied up with other stuff that you can't access your genius. Okay, enough said. The full moon. Oh, I didn't finish that part though. I was trying to move on. I didn't consider all the aspects here. That prosperous trine between Jupiter and Mars promote an inventive streak, while the global economy might appear stalled. Remember, the aspect is they're both planets are retrograde. That pause is leading people to find innovative paths to prosperity. That's the shorter way to just say what I said a lot longer. This full moon square, okay, between intellectually aggressive Mars and intuitive Neptune, well, it's going to highlight our internal struggle between thinking our way through issues and being open to solutions from non-logical sources. Part of the secret of creativity is the ability to go very easily between the intuitive side of your brain to the logical side of your brain, the intuitive side to the logical, be able to go back and forth, and they find that people who are very creative have a lot of connections between the two sides of their brains. The fire trine between Mercury and Aries and Saturn and Sagittarius at the Galactic Center speaks to this process. Great creativity and accomplishments require moving easily between the two sides of the brain, the two major dimensions of humanity, intuitive emotional versus logical critical. The full moon on the 10th speaks about this through these aspects, the inventor's process, where an ease of communication facilitates turning inspiration into application. I guess I wasn't finished talking about that. Now, on the 15th, that's marked with a C, Mercury enters Taurus, while the Sun takes an intensely emotional path near the star Algol and the constellation Pleiades by the Seven Sisters. This particular part of the sky, late in Taurus, it runs from 25 degrees Taurus to 29 degrees Taurus, Algol, the Pleiades, and then actually goes into the early part of Gemini, where the Hyades are, the Weeping Sisters, was traditionally considered a very difficult part of the sky because of these particular stars, these influences. The Pleiades is known for being a very powerful esoteric center. Algol traditionally was always known as issues related to the eyes, but also in terms of people's vision. But it tends to be a very emotionally complex time. So, you know, you have Mercury is going into Taurus, is early in Taurus in the bossy part, but at the same time the Sun is traveling through these areas. And you will tend to notice it around the 15th to the 20th as these transits, the Sun transits this area. People who are very intuitive will especially notice it. Finally, after the 20th, the Sun enters Gemini, okay? And still in the Hyades. So during this period of time, you kind of expect your emotional journeys to be along twisting paths overhung with worries and hopes, okay? during this period of time, you have to consciously do things to improve your mood and lift your expectations. You want to write post-it notes with good thoughts and put them up high to make you have to stand up straight and look at them. Straighten that spine and think optimistically. You need to do things like that for yourself. You need to use essential oils, especially the citruses, the pink grapefruit, bergamot, orange, things like that, red mandarin. Use them around the house to lift the mood, because it's an emotionally difficult time. If you know people who are born with their sun at this time, they tend to be very, very complex. I know a lot of people who are very into the esoteric arts, a lot of astrologers who are born during this period of time. You know, astrologers are not uncomplicated. Now, on the new 25th, it's marked with an E, the new moon. Okay, let's take a look at that. Oh my, sorry. The new moon, right, has Mercury in Taurus, it has Venus in Aries. You see, none of these things are real strong positions. The sun's still the galactic center. The new moon, as we say here, encourages you to plant the seeds for prosperity that has global ramifications. The thing about this chart, this new moon on the 25th, is that no major planets are in any kind of what's called dignity. Okay? A dignity means that they are in a rulership or an exaltation, and it means basically that they're able to perform the way they were designed to perform at their very best. On the good side, it gives you a tremendous amount of flexibility, because no one's really kind of pushing your buttons. There's no, when a planet's in a rulership, it really drives the agenda. Late in the month, late in this May, no one's driving the agenda. You know, use that creativity, use that brilliance from the beginning of the month to create an idea of where you want to go. And as you move towards the later part of the month, there's no one saying, there's no naysayers, as they say. You know, there's no one saying, oh, you can't do that. No, people really don't have much of an opinion about it. So what really matters is your opinion and your actions. So that's May for you, a very entertaining month. Remember to go out there in the flowers, have good meals. You always want to do that when the sun is in Taurus. And for now, that's the forecast for May 2017. I'm Ralph Amicis with Planetary Calendar. And remember to come back and see us for next month, June 2017, right here at spaceandtime.com.